Good morning, I'm Melissa Meeks and I'm going to debrief yesterday's peer learning activity. Let's start by remembering how Eli works. You completed a small bit of writing on Monday, you gave feedback on Tuesday, and today we're focusing on processing and debriefing feedback. Tomorrow you'll build a revision plan and perhaps you would revise. In a course, we could repeat these steps building from where we ended or starting a new project. I want to put the emphasis on processing and debriefing feedback because, as Dylan William explains in his article, The Secret of Effective Feedback from ASCD, the only important thing about feedback is what students do with it. In debriefing, our goal is to inspire revision, to help writers see their drafts differently because of the criteria of the assignment and what they can see in others' drafts. The writing task was simply to compose a syllabus blurb or talking points, and it had no criteria about length or other content because participants in this course are diverse. You can tell from the drafts you've read that we have very different ideas about what a syllabus should sound like and what kind of information it should contain. In this review, I wanted to document the different ways people might approach the pitch for peer learning to students and give us a sense of what's possible. Most reviews are built around criteria announced in a writing task, but this review had very few criteria, so this one is built around options. The first set of options connects peer review to larger course goals, to the instructor's personal pedagogy, and to students as learners or future professionals. The second set covers the pedagogical principles in the readings. Because we're interested in peer learning pedagogy, we wanted to see which of these ideas bubbled up in the ways you're describing peer learning to your students. The third set acknowledges that students bring to peer learning quite a bit of emotional baggage. Getting them to a more positive place with higher expectations of peer learning takes intentional conversation. This checklist is just a way of marking that need as part of the work of building a culture of feedback in your classroom. The rating scale is designed to get groups to nominate a peer exemplar for discussion, and I'll do that in a minute. The comment prompt reinforced Describe, Evaluate, Suggest and provided a model, which was designed to nudge reviewers in giving great feedback aligned to the criteria above. In short, the review task is a map for revision. It describes a landscape of possibilities for writers to revise. It is not prescribing that writers do X, Y, or Z to achieve a specific goal, which is often a good strategy for a review. But this one is really more informative and generative. It's laying out the options. The second strategy of inspiring revision relies on the zone of proximal development. Before we work through the data together, remember this image from the videos you watched on Monday? This is a little dancer who looks to the side and sees another little dancer doing the right move, so she makes adjustments. In Eli, looking to your right and looking to your left and then making a slight adjustment happens when you see your own feedback. I'm showing the teacher view of an individual student's feedback report, but each of you have a report on the feedback you received and the feedback you gave. The feedback you received report itemizes what reviewers said about your draft. In these trait ID checklists, reviewers are saying, yes, I see a feature, or no, I don't see that feature, and the percentages indicate the rate of agreement among readers. The numbers are not an assessment of effectiveness, not a grade. It's an assessment of reviewers' agreement about whether they noticed the feature. Where you see 100%, both reviewers agree that that feature was present in the draft. Where you see 50% or less, that means one or more reviewers did not notice that feature. As you look at these numbers, the question to ask is, did the reader who missed that element just read too quickly, or is that element too subtle? Similarly, the class average tells you of all the drafts read by all the reviewers, how many reviewers noticed that feature. The class average tells you what's popular or dominant in the whole set of drafts, so you can decide how much you want to be like everyone else. In the scaled response items, you'll get both a rating and a comment if the reviewer included it. Use this feedback as food for thought. Food for thought about revision is important, but it's actions that matter most. Eli invites students to take 2 quick actions as they consider the feedback they've received. First, rate the helpfulness of each comment. Give 1 star for each yes answer. Does the comment describe your writing so that you understand what readers are getting from your paper? Does the comment help you evaluate your progress toward the assignment goals? And does the comment offer a specific suggestion that you can follow when you revise? If it has all 3 required moves for a helpful comment, then that comment should get 3 stars. The next 2 stars you can use at your discretion. A 4th star might be awarded for particular respect shown to your work or to you. I call that the kindness star. And the 5th star is reserved only for those comments that meet all of the previous criteria and help you transform your writing. So use the helpfulness scale to evaluate your comments and work through them carefully. As you rate the helpfulness, consider whether I've given the comment a blue thumbs up or not. I endorse comments that follow, describe, evaluate, suggest, and push the draft in a really good direction. This one decision about how helpful you find a particular comment flows back to the reviewer and to the instructor. In a low-stakes way, without affecting anyone's grade, writers can use the helpfulness rating to say, I'm getting what I need to revise from you, or not. Instructors can use that information to coach particular reviewers who are struggling to give helpful feedback. After you rate the helpfulness of a comment, your second decision is to decide whether to add it to your revision plan. On the student side, you have a button for a comment over the right side that says Add to Plan. When you click it, you'll choose which writing task this comment applies to, and then a copy of this comment is moved to the plan associated with this writing task. This decision initiates the revision plan. Later, I'll show you how to finish the plan. Eli's features are helping writers work through a decision-making process around each comment. How helpful was this comment to me in guiding my revision, and do I want this comment on my plan? These easy choices help writers spend more time thinking through revision. The third strategy for inspiring revision is to give students a perspective of what happened across the whole class. When you're working in a review group, you can only see the drafts that have been shared with you. From the instructor's vantage point, I can see what's happening across groups, and I want writers to have a full sense of what other people have been doing. I can do that by talking through the class data on the Writing Feedback tab. These trends indicate that most drafts focused on the value of peer learning for students as learners or as future professionals, which was the primary goal of the assignment. If you did not get a checkbox from all reviewers on this item, that's something to really pay attention to in your revision plan. In this set of drafts, it's clear that writers were really thinking about the importance of coaching reviewers and how to give feedback and how to revise, and related to that, what the expectations are for helpful feedback. Even though it only factors into about 25% of the drafts right now, I would encourage you to really think about the cognitive load of your assignments if you're going to use Eli this semester. It's perhaps not something you say to students on the first day of peer learning, but it should influence the design of all your peer review activities. It's also clear that not a lot of the negative baggage students bring to peer learning was present in this draft, which totally makes sense for a syllabus or the first day enthusiasm. But I also just want to say that students need some time to get past their bad experiences. And so you might want to think about activities or conversations that you have throughout the term to address things like students' doubt about their abilities to give feedback to writers who they perceive as stronger than themselves, or their resistance to this labor as part of the work of the course. One of the most important roles of the instructor in debriefing a peer review is to show models of drafts that encourage other students to learn from the good work of their peers. In this review, I used a star rating scale to get you to tell me which drafts you liked. So I'm going to show a couple of models that were nominated by the groups and also that kind of bubbled up based on all the criteria in this review. This is a great time to stop the video and read the full draft. So what we're seeing here is the draft the writer submitted, and each blue numbered EndNote is the presence of a comment where the reviewer highlighted text and then added comments. So there are some comments that did not have highlights associated, and those will appear at the bottom. But when you see a blue footnote, that's when you can click on the footnote to view the comment. This draft is the top nominated draft in the class. Surprises me because it has a lot of truisms about what peer review is, but it doesn't seem particularly addressed to students. I do want to call attention to two bullet points that echo the values of this workshop. And the first one is the idea that for writing teachers, lots of revision is efficient. But writers may not see that as particularly efficient, right? They would rather crank out a paper that's pretty close to done and be done without having to go through a revision process. So while we can see the efficiency of writing in small bits and revising based on targeted feedback, that may not feel like efficiency to them. So think about how you explain that to students. The other point that's related to that I think is so important, and it's noted by the reviewer too, is that revision is seen by students often as a punitive activity. It's something they have to do because their first draft wasn't any good. And fighting against that mindset is such an important part of success with peer learning. Let me show you a second model here. I want to call attention to this third paragraph, which introduces the analogy of a chef making spaghetti, right? That you want to have your draft in the water long enough so that the noodles are not undercooked when they come out and that they get to al dente. And so it's interesting that one reviewer really liked that metaphor and one reviewer questioned it. And I think that's really an important part of the work of peer review, is to help writers understand that readers can see where they're going and then question the effectiveness. This third model is really a tight blurb. There are three basic moves in this tight blurb. The first is to position peer feedback against instructor feedback and to assure students that they're going to get both kinds. The next move is to distinguish peer editing from peer feedback, which is an important thing for students to understand. We're not proofreading here, we're doing global revision. And then the final move is to help students begin to understand that a comment is an argument for revision, and as an argument it needs to stand alone to articulate why a writer should revise and also how. And describe, evaluate, suggest is a way of encouraging students to frame their comments as arguments for revision. This next model picks up on that same idea about peer comments as arguments for revision in this second paragraph, but the last paragraph offers a different approach to interpreting the timelines that you saw in Monday's reading. And it suggests that students should spend about the same amount of time providing feedback as they spent drafting, and then they should spend about that same amount of time in revising. That's lovely and ideal, and so you might encourage students to time the way they give feedback. In my experience teaching with Eli in a community college, students would say, I do about 10 minutes per draft. That's kind of their threshold for feedback, no matter what I design in the peer review. And so if timing is one of those indicators you want students to use for understanding if they've given enough, prompt them in this way. So I hope that sense of what drafts other reviewers liked a lot were doing helped you really think about the kinds of moves you might make in your own syllabus blurb. Let me pull together all the different ways you can be inspired to revise your draft. In the checklists, consider what was popular and what you were missing. In the ratings, consider how evaluation helps you set goals. In the comments, rate the helpfulness of the comments you've received and add the best ones to your revision plan. Let me show you how to do the revision plan once you've added all the feedback from a review task. Use Home to navigate to your dashboard, and then click into the revision report. Your revision plan will have a set of instructions above, and it'll also give you a link to a video that explains the technical steps for how to build a revision plan. Any comments that you've added from peers will appear in a list that you can drag and drop. So once you've got the comments on your plan from the review task, then you can drag and drop them in priority order. You can also add a note to explain how you are going to use that feedback. The note is addressed to you and to me as the instructor. In the additional notes section, this is a great place to add any other revision goals you have based on your work as a reviewer, based on this debriefing video, and based on any of the peer feedback that you didn't actually add to your plan but you still want to be influenced by. So once you've saved your note, submit it, and then I'll see it and give you feedback by the end of day Friday. So let me go back to home. In your dashboard, you're going to see a resubmit task as well. This is the last task of the week. I don't actually expect you to revise this blurb this week, but I wanted you to see how Eli takes your original writing and makes it available to you in the resubmit task. This feature makes it quick and easy to ask students to revise. This concludes the video on debriefing writing from the peer learning activity. I hope it was helpful for giving you a sense of how you can use Eli's features to make sure writers have the information they need to make good decisions about revising.